heard him were astonished. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What kind of wisdom has been given him? What mighty deeds are wrought by his hands? Is he not the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his native place, and among his own kin and his own house." So he was not able to perform any mighty deeds there, apart from curing a few sick people by laying his hands on them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. The Gospel of the Lord. A prophet is not somebody who predicts the future, although he might also predict the future. A prophet is somebody chosen by God to convey God's message to his people, especially to call the people to come back to God. That was the role of Ezekiel, Amos, Jeremiah. They were chosen by God to convey his message. In a sense, a prophet is the mouth of God. In the case of Ezekiel, God somehow, Ezekiel received a vision from God, and he fell on the ground, and God helped him to stand. And God warned him that, to be a prophet is not an easy task, because you have to disturb the establishment. You have to announce and denounce whatever is contrary to the will of God. And that's why today's readings we have a common thread between Ezekiel, Paul, and Jesus. Although Jesus was not only a prophet, Jesus is the Son of God. But before speaking about the prophet, I would like to remind you about freedom. From June 30th to July 10th, many countries of the world celebrate their independence. And independence is all about freedom. But oftentimes, we do not comprehend very well what freedom is all about. Most people think that freedom is, I am allowed to do whatever I want. Which is true. You can do whatever you want, but also you have to respect the freedom of the other. For instance, if I'm driving in a street, I cannot do whatever I want. I have to respect the other drivers too. Which means my freedom is not freedom if I do not respect the freedom of others. And the real freedom must acknowledge our Creator. The real remember Jesus said, "If you abide in my word, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free." As we know, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life that lead us to the Father. No one can go to the Father except through Jesus. And he promised us, "I am going to raise you up on the last day." St. Paul was persecuting the followers of Christ. But on the way to Damascus, he received grace upon grace. And he was converted and given a mission to go and proclaim the good news, to go and proclaim Christ crucified, who was buried, but he rose from the dead in accordance with the Scriptures. Now, St. Paul is telling us to be content in our weaknesses, in persecution. No one can be content to be persecuted. But Jesus is telling us that if we abide in his word, if we are rooted in him, no matter what happens, he shall overcome. When we are weak, then we are strong because we can bring our weaknesses to Jesus. And he can straighten up whatever is weak. He's the only one who can straighten up our weaknesses and give us again the joy, to be who we are, to acknowledge our imperfections, our weaknesses, and bring them to him. Then he can use us to bring blessings to other people. Jesus was not acknowledged in his native place. Maybe you have the same situation. The place they know where you were born, no? Yeah? Everybody knows everybody, okay? And they forget that God can gift somebody with so many blessings and the person changes completely. So when we see the blessings of other people, we need to thank God, not to be confined in the sin of pride and jealousy. Because once we acknowledge the blessings of other people, how God is working marvelously in them, then we too, God can bestow so many blessings upon us. Jesus went around doing good, miracles, healing so many people, feeding the people, but he was unable to do it in his own native place. And he was amazed at their lack of faith. So if it happened to Jesus, it can happen to us too. But we too, if we are rooted in him, we know that we shall overcome whatever adversity, we shall overcome whatever weaknesses that we have. Because of him who defeated even death itself. Today we are going to celebrate baptism of Violet and Vadilia. And that in virtue of our baptism, all of us are a people of prophets, king, and priest. We too were called to announce and denounce. We are given the mission not to be afraid of being persecuted, but always to know that if we rooted in Him, in Jesus, we too shall be empowered to carry out His mission. But to be a prophet, it has to start from me, my own life, not to target only the life of other people. Because once I acknowledge my imperfections, my weaknesses, I offer them to Jesus, then I will be empowered also to help other people acknowledge their own imperfections, their own weaknesses. My grace is sufficient for me, for you. When I am weak, then I'm strong because I can count on the grace of God, and only the grace of God is sufficient for me. We pray for ourselves too. To be courageous, to ask the gift of Jesus, really, the gift of courage, patience, to be able to carry out His mission, to announce and denounce whatever is contrary